Welcome to Mark Asked, and I'm here today with a very exciting guest that I'm really pleased to have in, and I have this opportunity to chat to personally. This is Emma from MmmEnglish, your channel. Holy cow. Like, it's just, we met at a Google workshop in Sydney and she told me about what she does. So you've got 2 degrees, you're a Centre Certified English teacher. Did I say that right?
No, it's CELTA.
It's CELTA, damn it. Okay, I was
But it's
terribly
very
wrong.
centered practice, yes.
But it's very, okay, I was close. So you've been coaching one-on-one pronunciation for years. You've been teaching English at universities. And then you've created this monster channel called MmmEnglish, where your passion is basically helping people, not just women, but people, learn and communicate in the English language. Now, before we get into the big parts of this, you were talking before we put the cameras on about high stakes. You said English is high stakes. What did you mean by that, and what made you so passionate about teaching English?
So, yeah, English is high stakes. It's, for a lot of people, it's an opening doors situation. It's like if you have English, you can communicate in English. It means you've got access to things like job promotions, to better relationships with people, to visa applications, university applications. So all of these things, right, they're really important, significant things in our lives that help us to become better people, the people that we want to be. So English that feeds into those opportunities is, it's high stakes. It means the pressure is on. There is a lot of stress and anxiety associated with learning and learning quickly in order to achieve those things.
Right, because you were saying that when we met, you kept saying English opens doors, and not just in jobs and opportunities, in relationships too, because you coach a lot of women who are in perhaps from an Eastern style country or a non-English speaking country who have gone to an English speaking country. And it's not just about the work, it's also about meeting people who speak English, right? So why is English so important, not just in this area, but obviously in relationships as well?
Well, so, for someone who is a non-native English speaker, but, finds themselves in a relationship, romantic relationship or otherwise, it could also be with a boss or colleagues, that kind of thing. Learning the language and being able to communicate clearly is fundamental to building good relationships.
It's huge, because I talk a lot on my channel about relationships being about vulnerability, about being about connection and respect. And our voice, what we say, is one of the best ways to create that. The words I use, you look at some of the most beautiful couples on YouTube, it's the way they talk to each other and the meaning behind their language is what creates that vulnerability and what creates that connection. So English is huge because good communication is huge. And one of the reasons I was so excited to get Emma in, who, by the way, have a look at her channel at the end of this video. It's absolutely, people have just taken to you. And you sometimes go to me, I don't know that much. She's incredible. She's freaking incredible. There's literally, we did the sums, 21 years of content gets consumed on her channel every month.
You said you weren't going to talk about that.
I promised I would talk about that. But that's how good she is. And so this is how much people are appreciating what you're teaching and the communication skills they're getting from you. So if a woman comes to you and is struggling with, or a man comes to you and is struggling with his English, and he wants to form better connections and better relationships in his life, where do you start? And they don't have much English skills. Maybe they find themselves wanting to meet an English man, or at least in an English country getting a job. English isn't first language. Where do they start? What's the first thing they can do?
Okay, so one of the first things that you can do is focus your language learning on particular topics. So niching down into communicating about feelings or communicating about, relationships with people around you, so that you have a really clear go-to in your conversation, so that you've got confidence, you've got vocabulary, and you've got the skills to have the conversation around a particular topic. As soon as you've got that, you've got a little bit of confidence that will allow you to participate in a conversation.
So it's kind of like specialize it. You pick an English specialist area and you go, I'm going to learn about whether it's relationships, and I'm going to learn how the feelings words, and I'm going to learn expression words, and maybe I'm going to learn first impression, first conversation.
Well, it's like, small talk topics. So there's always, a handful of topics. You talk about your job, you talk about your family, you talk about maybe your dreams and your travel and things like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, preparing for this kind of conversation is a really great way to start by having some dot points, practicing, you know, every
Okay.
time when you brush your teeth in front of the mirror, and just talking so that, like, obviously you know all of this information and you can draw on it when you need to, but in a situation where you're meeting someone for the first time, you're feeling a little nervous anyway. If you're anything like me, the slightest little hiccup can make you panic or freak out. And that's not necessary, particularly when you've prepared. You've got something that you can follow.
Okay, so do you recommend doing this kind of on your own and saying, okay, I have like 5-10 things I can talk about to start out. I want to be able to talk about my job, maybe talk about, you know, where I'm from, talk about 3 passions of mine. Do you kind of say they get a set list and on their own, or have a family member ask them in English to answer
That's not
and
a
like
bad
throw
idea.
different questions, or
If possible, I mean, lots of women who are learning to speak English, you know, may not have that network of English speakers around them, which is part of the challenge.
yeah.
But, and in that sense, you know, there are a couple of other suggestions that I can offer around, you know, finding that network and finding that community of other women or other people who are able to help you and support you in that sense.
Yeah.
So finding, you know, whether it's a buddy or a community of English language speakers, that you can sort of build some friendships and build up some trust with a couple of people who you can talk to about, particularly about relationships. If I think of an example, when I was teaching at a university here in Melbourne, one of the girls that I was teaching, she was from China, and she was in a relationship, not in a relationship, but she was chatting with a guy online, and she thought that they were just friends. And they were having a conversation, and suddenly he went a little strange. Because English was her second language, she couldn't quite pick up on what was happening.
Right.
For me, when I read the conversation, I knew exactly what was happening. Okay,
Yeah.
He was a little kind of put off or a little frustrated by the fact that she didn't want to come round to his house that night, and he was, you know, trying to suggest that everything was okay. But in her mind, this was a friend. You know, they didn't have a romantic relationship, and it wasn't something she was interested in.
And she's like, why is he angry? Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't get it.
Yeah. So she's feeling really stressed and uncomfortable, and just being able to chat with me and find out a little bit more about the conversation that's happening, what it means, what he's trying to say, helped her to sort of manage that situation a little better. So having a buddy or having a community that you can go to and say, what do you think about this? Or, you know, he said this, what does that mean? It's priceless, you know.
Great. You actually got me thinking there, because I spend a fair amount of time translating text messages.
Yeah.
And obviously they're in English, but even subtle things like even the number of dots or the smileys used, I can interpret different signals really well. What's your opinion? How important is it that people who are learning English, who might be ESL, how important is it that they get away from text message? Is it important, or do you use it? Because I hate them. There's so many miscommunications, there's so many problems. Most of the problems that I have with text message could have been solved if someone had picked up the phone. Mm-hmm. Do you encourage people to use text message because it is simple and informational, or do you apply the same advice and say, no, you're better off practicing your English in person or in real time on the phone?
I think it's challenging because there's a few things going on there. Firstly, I'm communicating in text a lot.
Yes.
Through YouTube, through my Facebook.
You text me and I call you.
Exactly.
I just get calling. Why don't you never call me?
I use emojis a lot. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is because, you know, even if you can't find the words and express yourself in the right way through text message, emojis can help you to do that. They can suggest that you're being cheeky or funny, or, you know, they can express
They can change
frustration.
the entire meaning of a message.
Exactly.
A single emoji.
That said, you know, using them incorrectly can be really confusing.
Yeah, I've
So
seen
if you
people
mess
use
it up-
winkies. I'm like, David, winkies there, you're booty calling him.
It's
What are
really
you
creepy.
doing?
Stop that.
Yeah, be delicate with your winkies there.
Exactly. But for women, for your audience in particular, if English is not their first language. They may, in fact, feel more confident using text message, but I would just encourage them to express themselves fully in sentences. Don't use the little abbreviations, and don't sort of leave things open. Just be really clear. Try and express yourself with full sentences and in as much detail as possible. Text messages don't have to be short.
Okay, which is interesting because it's quite different to what I will sometimes say, which is I will say you may be more comfortable with text messages, but I want you to get confident in the spoken word. So you're saying when you're learning English, you can use texts and you can go longer with them.
It's different because, you know, for a native English speaker, so someone who's always spoken English, it's definitely, you know, there's less pressure and you don't have to speak to someone face to face, right? So it can make it a little easier, less committed. But for women who are learning to speak English, you know, that adds a whole nother layer where it's not certain, or it's not a certainty that when they speak like verbally to someone over the phone, that the message will in fact be clearer, because potentially they're nervous, they're worried, they're trying to, you know, make things clear, but, you know, and then being in real time, it changes the dynamic a lot. So if there's a sense of nervousness, anxiety around speaking, text messages are a good option.
A functional way to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so is there other tips that they can use? So you talked about, what was the first one you said?
Niching.
You talked about niching your English. That's right. So getting good at specific topics with English rather than having the overwhelming job of learning the whole language. You talked about buddy systems.
Yeah, or a community.
Having a community around you. So even things like meetup groups.
Well, I was going to say that's the third sort of suggestion that I had. The buddy, for me, the buddy and the community is, I guess that could be in person for sure, particularly if you have a network around you. But for a lot of my students in particular, they are in communities that maybe don't use English frequently, and they're actually finding these networks online. So they're connecting with people you know, through Facebook groups or through programs and things.
And you have a great free Facebook group too, don't you?
Yes.
You have a Facebook group, and then you have this Women's Empowered group. What's your special group?
Yes, that's called the Ladies Project.
Project,
the Ladies Project is about empowering women to use English confidently. And it's about creating a network of support amongst women who are learning English. And I guess removing some of the sort of anxiety, it's quite relevant to the conversation that we're having here, because learning a language online can be a little bit daunting for a woman, because it's quite easy for a man to take her the wrong way.
I was going to say, you were saying men as well in the groups, when they had male training partners, were potentially throwing the conversation off. It's like, we're not here to learn English, he's actually hitting on her.
Exactly. And, you know, when it's not your first language, you know, that changes the dynamic, and you're unsure about what's he mean, what's happening, and it makes the situation quite uncomfortable. So this group that I run is for women only. We focus on the confidence.
Are you personally in that group?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The focus is on confidence with English and building that confidence amongst a network of women. So it's just removing some of those extra pressures of having men and other kind of layers of emotion and relationships and things in it. That space.
So you know that you're there, we're going to learn some English, we got some quality partners there, because that group's quite exclusive, isn't it?
It's
so
quite,
So you've got your free Facebook group.
So the free Facebook group is Ladies Who Love to Speak English.
We'll put the link to that in the description for you. And don't forget Emma's channel as well, MmmEnglish, is in the description too. Amazing channel, go and subscribe right now, make sure you're there. You've also got your free Facebook group, much like we've got one as well, so make sure you check those out, they'll be in the description. And then the special group, which is?
The Ladies Project.
The Ladies Project is in the group too. So if you've loved what's from Emma here today and you want to have some personal contact with her, the Ladies Project, or just great women around the world who want to learn English to improve their communication, their jobs, their relationships, just everything in English, the Ladies Project is where they should go.
Definitely.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Anything else that you can add? Is there any little tips? We talked briefly before the interview, before we came up here, about, for right now in the short term, getting comfortable with your body language.
That's it. Yeah.
And things like confidence. Is there any other sort of, what's your advice around that? If someone wants to kind of, they can't improve their English today, is there some non-English ways, some universal body language ways that they can
Definitely.
communicate better?
I mean, it's really fascinating that the huge percentage of communication that we actually do is non-verbal. So I think it's something like 80% of the communicating that we do is non-verbal, which is eye contact, body language, all of these, you know.
And your inflections on your voice rather than what you're saying.
Exactly. The tone, all of that. There's so much meaning there.
If I go, Emma, completely different meanings though, right? Yeah.
Completely different. That's not to add a whole new layer of complexity though to relationships, but I think that, you know,
it comes with time. You
exactly.
pick up those things with time.
And when it comes to showing someone how you feel, you really can't beat some of the really core body language things like eye contact, looking at someone, focusing on them, you know, even lightly touching and, you know, laughing, facing your body to them. All of these things are suggesting to that person that you're interested.
Yeah, and there's obviously things like love languages as well, which I think of the 5, only one of them is even words. So Gary Chapman says about 20% of people are in each niche, so 80% of men don't even receive their primary love language through words. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay, Emma, they know how they can find out more about you. Is there anything else, I guess any other little tips or things that you can say if a woman's feeling a bit down and she's going, it's such a big job, English is such a complex language, which it is, you know, it feels overwhelming to try to tackle this. Am I ever going to have a good relationship with an English man when there's these English speaking women that want them too? What do you say to those women?
Well, becoming confident with English and, you know, through that becoming confident in relationships.
And yourself too.
And yourself. I mean, yeah, we're talking beyond relationships here. We're talking about work and all sorts of other, you know, important things in our lives. There's so much, you know, to really focus on in terms of what's important. But I think that one of the true things that we really need to do is be honest with ourselves and also with other people around us. I think that we often try to make ourselves seem bigger or better or smarter or, you know,
cooler or
exactly. But when it comes to, you know, the reality that your English it's your second language or your third language, just by being honest with the people that you're speaking to and making sure that they know and understand that, you know, it's not so easy, maybe they need to slow down a little. By doing that, it's going to make your conversation and your relationships so much stronger in the long run because you're being honest and open about your language. The worst thing that you could do is nod and you know, pretend that you're understanding everything when actually you know, you don't. That relationship then, it has a finite point where you can't actually get beyond. Whereas if that person who's listening to you understands that they need to help you to get beyond that point, then
and you've just made me think of examples. You know, I've had women who just sit there nodding and smiling. I'm like, she doesn't know what I'm saying. You know, she can't connect with me. As opposed to, you know, if she's learned one good line, which is simply English is my second language. Can you slow down? And even if she like leans in and touches me on the chest, English is my second language. Can you please slow down? I'm like, oh, she obviously likes me. Like she's leaned in. She's used her non-verbals. And then even that one line has communicated to me, okay, I get what's going on. She's being vulnerable. She's saying she needs help. And now she's trying to connect. She's wanting to connect as opposed to the woman who's too shy and nodding. So that makes her vulnerable and beautiful and makes it easier, so much easier for me to connect with her.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in and giving your time. You're from Perth, I'm from Brisbane. We managed to catch up in Melbourne.
In Melbourne,
which
how's
is pretty
that?
cool, yeah. So thank you for coming in. Don't forget, you can check out Emma's channel in the link below. She's got the free Facebook group and the very special Ladies Project with amazing women in there. And Emma personally, this woman's so full of heart. I met her in Sydney and Sydney was where we met. We met in Sydney and Melbourne, and we're from Brisbane and Perth. She's so full of heart for what she does. She's very modest about it, and her results speak for themselves. So have a look at her channel if you don't believe me and how well it's going. Thank you so much for coming in.
No
I think that's it.
worries.
Hit the subscribe
Thanks for
button on
having
this
me.
channel too with the little bell so you get the notifications and the thumbs up as well. And yeah, Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure. So we'll see you next time.
It's been fun. See ya.
Thanks, guys.